At the cathedral in the town of Frombork, in northeast Poland, I'm witnessing an extraordinary event. An elaborate funeral marking the end of a 200-year search for the remains of a Polish churchman and scientist who was originally buried here in an unmarked grave in 1543. The remains are those of Nicholas Copernicus.
Well, this is a pretty amazing event for the locals here, but also for everyone else. There are historians, astronomers, physicists and mathematicians from all over the world, and they come here to see the final formal laying to rest of a man who died nearly 500 years ago, an unsung hero who pretty much invented modern astronomy and started the scientific revolution.
Copernicus's world-changing book was De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, on the revolutions of the heavenly spheres. By the time it appeared in print, he was already on his deathbed. At a time when science, the Bible, and plain common sense all agreed that the Earth was static at the centre of the cosmos, Copernicus dared to say different. His was a dangerous idea, one that threatened the very foundations of Western thought itself. It was a vision of the heavens that no one in the world had ever seen, one that flew in the face of the most fundamental ideas about the universe. For over 2,000 years, men had believed that the Earth was static at the centre of the cosmos, with the sun and planets moving around it. To try to prove otherwise was an act of madness and heresy rolled into one. Even worse, it contradicted one of the greatest scientists of the classical past, the Roman astronomer Ptolemy.
This is the so-called geocentric universe as proposed by Claudius Ptolemy. It has the Earth static at the centre of the universe, and the other planets and the sun as well are moving around the Earth. I think in this diagram you really get the idea of the Earth at the centre of the universe. Ptolemy had been dead for 1,000 years when Copernicus was born, but his ideas were still considered as gospel truth. At universities across Europe, from here in Oxford through to Warsaw, students and scholars and professors would learn that this was their model of the universe. Above all, this is what they regarded as the truth.
But it wasn't just the Ptolemy-loving world of scholars that Copernicus had to worry about. It was also the much more powerful world of the Church. The Bible made it clear in Psalm 93 that Ptolemy was right. "Thou hast fixed the earth, immovable and firm," it reads. To undermine scripture was heresy.
This would have been alarming enough for any Christian scholar in Europe. But what made these theological objections even tougher and more dangerous for Copernicus was the fact that he was a canon looking after one of the altars in this very cathedral in Frombork. Inside here, he was a man of faith who couldn't countenance publishing such an extraordinary new idea. Out there, however, he was a mathematician, and he couldn't leave the idea alone.
The year was 1548, and in a small municipality located 16 miles east of Naples, our philosopher was born. His given name upon his baptism was Filippo Bruno. The name Giordano would come only after entering the monastery of the Dominicans at the age of 17. On February 8, 1600, his sentence was passed. It read that Bruno should be delivered to the secular court, to the governor of Rome here present, that thou mayest be punished with the punishment deserved, though we earnestly pray that he will mitigate the rigor of the laws concerning the pains of thy person, that thou mayest not be in danger of death or mutilation of thy members. To this Bruno sallied forth, a second Socrates, and exclaimed, "Perchance you, who pronounce my sentence, are in greater fear than I who receive it." And so Bruno, bound to the iron stake, nude and tongue-bound, burned in the Piazza Campo dei Fiori. He was 52 years old. Bruno was not without his faults, but even so, he remains to this day a symbol of free thought and tolerance of differences.
After building a better telescope, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei found evidence to support Nicholas Copernicus's theory that the Earth isn't the center of the universe. Galileo had observed 4 objects moving around Jupiter. He suggested that if these moons revolved around Jupiter and not the Earth, then the Earth couldn't be the center of the universe. The Church wanted Galileo to withdraw his scientific statements because they went against its teachings. The Church had long stated that the Earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around it. Galileo also got into trouble for his ideas about the Bible. Galileo said that although he understood the Bible's actual words, he wondered if people had made a mistake in interpreting its words. The Church decreed that it would not tolerate such thinking. Only the clergy could interpret the Bible. It wasn't long before the Catholic Church had Galileo arrested and charged with heresy. During his trial in 1632, Galileo was 68 years old and in poor health. He worried what his fate would be if he continued to argue with the Church. Galileo remembered that in 1600, Church authorities burned Giordano Bruno at the stake for declaring the Earth was not the center of the universe. Galileo conceded to the Church's request and announced that he was wrong in his beliefs. The Church spared his life and instead gave Galileo permanent house arrest as punishment. He stayed under house arrest until his death in 1642. In 1992, the Catholic Church reversed the charges against Galileo.